Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Camp Conversations. I'm Bella, curator of a recent online exhibition, The Fragmented Frame. And we are here today with the lovely Ellen Friedlander, who was one of the artists included in this exhibition alongside Sven Frommer, Mario Rossi, and Zom Pedron. Today, we are going to be talking about her journey as a photographer and some awesome things that she's been working on. So Ellen, how are you doing today? I know you just got back from Hong Kong to LA. So how has that transition been? How are you settling in?
Well, it was wonderful being in Hong Kong. It was an unusual trip at an unusual time. But I lived in Hong Kong for several years, and 15 years to be exact, and raised my family there. And my son has gone back. So with the pandemic really rampant in LA, it gave us an opportunity, my daughter and I, to leave. And we were only going for a short time, but because the pandemic was really bad here in Los Angeles, we ended up staying, which was amazing because I got to walk on the street for, we were in quarantine for 2 weeks, which I'll share a little bit of. And then I was on the street for almost 6 weeks. It was
Uh-huh.
amazing. So it was wonderful. And coming back to LA when we did, what was time, everything in its place.
Yeah. So when you say when you were on the street, can you just describe that to me a bit more? Like, what does that mean to you when you say I was on the street for 6 weeks?
Well, there is a phonetic energy that I am very attuned to in Hong Kong. Um, there's a color palette, there's a light, there's the energy on the street because people live on the street, they work on the street. There are little businesses and they work in the back. And so there's still that edginess to the city, which is incredibly attractive to me. And then there's graffiti and there's street art and there's just normal everyday chaos. And so I just take to the street with my camera in hand. And it's like eye candy. So for me, being there at an unexpected time during a pandemic and where I hadn't been able to walk on the street so freely in
Yeah.
Los Angeles, I just couldn't get there fast enough. Kind of like the beginning of the pandemic here in LA, get me out on the street. So
Yeah.
I was the same way in Hong Kong. I was like, oh my God, I don't know how long I'm going to be here. So I was just like camera in hand. Where my son lives is Saying Poon. It's a really cool neighborhood. Lets me go left or right to like less dense, more dense, up in little alleyways. And it's just like every day, even if I see the same thing, that's what's so magical about street
Mhm.
photography. It's always different, always. So that's what I mean.
Awesome. That's amazing. I really just wanted to start this off with I want to get to know you a little bit more. I want to know where you come from. So, like, my first question is, where are you from originally? Like, what was your upbringing like? And what eventually led you to Hong Kong to raise your family and live there for 15 years, like you said?
Right. Well, we should fast forward if you want to, because
Okay.
go to the slide, keep going, then we can go back. Keep going. There we go.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
So, everybody has, I believe, I'm a mom, I believe children come into this world with certain gifts.
Mhm.
Whether we realize them or not, it's a different story. But I was 5 in this photograph, and my mother found this not too long ago. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I've always been artistic. I danced. Um, this was in a museum where I'm from in upstate New York called Utica. And I studied art.
Okay.
As a little kid, I was always doing art. I was always dancing. And I was actually a figure skater. So I'm passionate about things and I loved figure skating. But at a certain
Where are you
point,
from originally? Like, what was your upbringing like? And what eventually led you to Hong Kong to raise your family and live there for 15 years, like you said?
so everybody has, I believe, I'm a mom, I believe children come into this world with certain gifts.
Mhm.
Whether we realize them or not, it's a different story. But I was 5 in this photograph, and my mother found this not too long ago. And I was like, oh my God, I can't believe it. I've always been artistic. I danced. Um, this was in a museum where I'm from in upstate New York called Utica.
Okay.
And I studied art, you know, as a little kid. I was always doing art. I was always dancing. And I was actually a figure skater. So I'm passionate about things and I loved figure skating. But at a certain point, I'm from upstate New York, you know, I wasn't really gifted at it. I loved it, but wasn't gifted. And at 16, my mother and father said to me, you know, you have an opportunity. We can't afford to send you to school if you continue to skate,
Mhm.
but we would give you an opportunity to go to a boarding school because I was not being stimulated. It was not the right environment for me. And I said, okay, well, the skating thing I love, but it's not going to be where I go. And I took the leap. So I went to this amazing women's boarding school called Emma Willard, and I left my skating, which was like a void, you know, empty. And I don't know how it happened, but I picked up a camera my father, I think he must have bought me that as a gift. I must have made an interest like in it. And it was over
Right.
like in a nanosecond. I'm like, oh my God. So yeah. And I joined the yearbook and I photographed everything and I was really bad at it, but it didn't really matter. But I like, that was what I was going to go to school for.
Okay.
So then I decide I pick 4 schools. I know nothing. I'm the first in my family to go to college. And so,
Wow.
yeah, right. So
Yeah.
I had no guidance. So
Mhm.
I'll just confess, made four schools: Yale, University of Pennsylvania, UVA, University of Vermont, and Ithaca College. I did not get into the top 2, but I got into the other 2. So I was like, okay, well, Ithaca College had this amazing communications department. And so when I went there and I saw the communications department, and the art school was okay, but the communications was great. I was like, okay. So I went there and I actually got a BFA in art and I minored in photography. Have to say I spent all my time in the photography lab, and just those were my people. We were like 12 people who majored in it, and I just hung on every word. It was what I did. So this is where I'm from, in
Oh,
upstate New
beautiful.
York. Yeah. So
Beautiful.
this is Old Forge, New York, and we've been in this area since my grandfather bought it in 1945. I grew up there. My father grew up there. My children grew up there when we
Oh,
weren't in Hong
wow.
Kong. Yeah. So
Okay.
it's a respite. So this is where I'm from. These are my
I love
roots.
your photos, by the way. This is amazing. This is incredible.
So this is when I'm in college, and I brought the 4x5 home, and it was a Friday night dinner, and you know, I got to play. I'm like, everybody like did, you know, I said, please, like, can I take your portrait? And they just did their thing, and I played with my 4x5 in the middle of the living room. And yeah, it's amazing because this photograph, you know, after this is what I'm old. So this is like 40 years ago I made this photograph, and that's why photographs are so special.
Oh, 100%.
You know,
100%. They're like time capsules and they transcend through time forever. It's amazing. It's awesome. Photography is such a cool medium and so important. It's vital.
it's
Vital.
vital.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is
So
this you on the left?
no.
Oh,
This is Emmett Gowan's wife. No, this is like Emmett Gowan came to our senior thesis class, and it was the most like moment where I just saw my life flash before me. I
uh-huh.
was 21 years old, and Emmett Gowan had his photographs right like 3 feet in front of me, and I just stood there as he photographed his wife and his everyday surroundings, and he made this amazing work, and it resonated with every single pore. And so Danny Guthrie and Monty Gerlich were my professors at Ithaca College, and what I heard them say to me is, what photographers of this genre did is that they just did everything in their power to learn how to do their medium.
Mhm.
And so I took that with me. So I left college with that in my head. Okay. I knew I didn't have all the tools I needed. Lighting was always hard for me. You know, making sharp photographs was always a challenge for me. There were lots of challenges, but I was like, well, hey, I mean, it's a lifelong passion. So that's where this kind of came from, is like this lifelong desire to keep learning about my medium and do everything I could to learn about it, which is what I did. I left Ithaca College. That's Danny, by the way. My professor is the guy I'm holding.
Okay.
And he comes through, we've been friends forever. So he comes and visits. And Jeff Katz on the right there, he's an amazing photographer, LA based, and does the stars, and he actually worked for Prince. I mean, these are my people. And so I know, but I was really out of touch with my
Okay.
people because I was in Hong Kong for 15 years. I'm going to flash
Right.
forward a little bit. So I've been working in the medium of photography as a rep, as a stylist, as a director of print in a small modeling agency in St. Louis when I lived there. I just took it upon myself, like at every opportunity, how can I learn all aspects of this medium? Because I knew I wanted to do it, but I also wanted to raise a family.
Yeah.
So that's kind of, and because I know what it takes to do the work that I want to do, which is 190%,
Very
right?
demanding, right?
Very demanding.
Time-wise, mentally, physically, emotionally. Yeah.
So I put my desire to be a fine art photographer, or actually to be a commercial photographer, kind of sideways, so that I could raise my children. And I just always did photography on the side. Even in Hong Kong, I worked with a photographer there for 10 years. And I took the expat market to him. And, I had this wonderful repertoire of, back and forth, because he didn't speak any English.
Wow.
So Simon spoke no English, but we had the same sensibility of caring about the medium. So this amazing sign language would go on when we do a shoot together. So my journey as a photographer has always been just keep learning. Whatever you have to do, just, teach yourself, work with other people, meet other people, keep it the medium is all consuming for me.
You say you're very medium focused, and I would just like to know more about, I mean, I have looked at your other work. I'm most familiar with the work from the extended frame series, which I love. I'm so drawn to them. They're so beautiful. And I just want to know, when you go out to shoot, do you have certain rituals? And, what does your pre-process look like as you go out into the street? And are there any rituals that you have as you go out to take photographs?
Honestly, to make sure that my battery's charged. Seriously.
That's a good one. That's a good one.
Battery charged, that my cards are cleared for the day. I always have a backup card. I don't delete anything from that for a while, but make sure everything's ready. I also try really hard to set my camera, look at the light, go outside, set my camera up, shutter, aperture, ISO for that particular moment, so that, and then make sure that my focus is right where in the center to begin with. I just kind of like, okay, make sure all my little gears are set, because I'm very intuitive. I actually went for a walk yesterday, for instance, and it was a walk, but we had our cameras. I was with a fellow photographer and seeing a show, and it's a very interesting, as I start to understand me, because we keep growing, and it's kind of like I'll see something out of the corner of my eye, and the camera automatically just comes up, and I may miss it initially, but it's just about catching that moment as it flashes upon me. And yesterday there was one moment, like I didn't even know what I was capturing. I saw the woman walk by me. She had a yellow umbrella, and I saw her out of the back of my head as we were talking, and I was like, I knew I wanted to catch her as she walked by.
Yeah.
So I started to raise my camera, and I'm starting to click, and I don't even know if it's not about getting it, it's just about being there. So I'm there, and as I take several frames and then I drop it and she's gone, I take and I just want to see if what was there. And all of a sudden I noticed the yellow umbrella. There's a yellow car that had just passed at the same time on that first click. So there's a yellow umbrella, there's the tail end of a yellow car. There was actually something else yellow, like in the scene. And I'm thinking, I did not actually calculate all those things, but yet because I was ready, there's that process. So I guess that's it. being ready because I'm intuitive on the
And
street.
it's quick and it's right in the moment. Yeah. That's
And
interesting you say that, because I also wanted to ask you, is there a certain like if you could define in that moment that you just described, out of the corner of your eye, you know you want to take the shot, if you had to describe that subliminal like mental ping that goes off in your head, and like what makes you want to pick up your camera and take the photograph, like what do you gravitate to when you're on the street?
well, I gravitate to everything.
Mhm.
I mean, honestly, so yesterday at the same time we're walking on the street and there's a bus stop. And I see this woman sitting with this white hat and she's just sitting there. But the white hat was really distinctive. And there was another woman, and then I could see behind me was a street person really heavily laden with bags. And all of a sudden, so it's like this, like, it's actually a guttural response
Mhm.
to the street that happens to me. I see one little nuance that attracts my eye, and from that I start intuitively on. It's so interesting because it's an intuitive process of starting to frame, and I've noticed that I actually do have a way that I frame. I mostly shoot with a 40mm on the street. Occasionally when I've really, done a lot of passes, I'll switch my lenses around, but I normally it's my 40mm pancake lens. It's really quiet, and it's amazing. It's like I have developed this innate way of framing on the left, center, and right with the something that really triggers my eye, and then I work it. So I
Mhm.
take that initial photograph, and then I move myself, I change my angle, I work every possible moment, even changing my shutter and depth of field so that I can get the most out of that moment.
Right.
I don't know. It's just,
Well, maybe
it's,
that's the beauty of it. Maybe the beauty is that you don't know, and that's why it comes off so authentic and so like it's I guess I don't really know how to describe
spontaneous.
it either, because I also have a similar I feel like I relate to you in the sense that I really love this tiny little nuances of humanity and being out and observing and people watching. It's just, but it is indescribable in some aspects, and I just think it's amazing. I think it's so cool. I love your work. I can't wait to talk more about the extended frame series, but we'll get there. uh, I want to know about, you've taken the photo, you've captured your moment, you have the file now. What is your process to go from digital file to your final presentation? How you want your viewers to see your work in its final state?
As well, I have lots of different bodies of work. And what I think is really interesting about not gatekeeping and being allowing my creative flow to have that access, whatever feels like that day. Like, I'm going to just backtrack. There are
Mhm.
days I wake up and I'm like, I'm consumed with making a portrait of myself, a self portrait. I don't know why. I don't know what's going on, but I wake up and it's like, it's an emotion. It's
Yes,
emotional. It's
yes.
an emotional response to whatever's going on. And so I have to do that. So a lot of times they'll sit in my phone or they'll sit in my camera. They don't always make it onto the computer right away. That's okay. When I'm on the street, the same thing, kind of, unless I'm shooting like 800 photographs on a day, then I download. Then I make sure that they're in my system, they're in my Lightroom catalog. I've done all that. I've labeled them, whatever. But there's something about letting photographs rest that's
Okay.
really important. Like, what I think is a shot initially, a lot of times isn't the one that comes to life.
Okay.
A lot of times that first photograph, I think, "Ooh, I nailed it." Sometimes the photograph forward and backward are actually a little bit more just a little bit more nuanced, or a little bit more off, or a little bit more unpredictable, or a little bit whatever. And that little nuance is like, I caught it better. But
Mhm.
initially, I think that the one that I, flagged, that's the one I think.
Yeah,
So it's a process of a lot of waiting. So the extended frames are really interesting because it's a puzzle.
right.
Um,
Yeah.
and I think that a lot of my work are puzzles. And so that they have to rest. I have to go back to them. I have to think about, I guess, Bella, the real answer is that I don't know how to answer that because I am so in the throes right now of making work. Since 2017, I mean, I've produced so much work um, that I'm still learning how to present it.
Right. Because you said that for a while you were raising your family and you said you were working under other photographers and you were kind of helping people. So would it be accurate to say maybe in the past 5 years you're really finding your footing as an individual and your individual identity as a photographer?
No question.
Okay.
Absolutely no question. I mean, and in fact, it's really the last 2 years
Okay. Wow.
which is not very long.
No.
Yeah, I know, it's crazy. So the last 2 years, I moved to LA in 2018, and I didn't really know a lot of people. And what I did is basically get up in the morning and for like 12, 15 hours a day, just work. I either photographed on the street or, as you mentioned, my betrayal series, I was making other work that was coming out of me. I was making landscapes, whatever was coming out of me, I just did because I didn't have any distractions. My kids weren't home. I was alone a lot. And I was learning Los Angeles and meeting people. But, you know, I was told the most important thing I could possibly do for myself was make work. And so I was like, well, I can do that.
Yeah.
Like, sign me up.
So what
So,
brought you?
and
Oh, sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, but that's what I enjoy like the most is like making work.
Mhm.
Um, it's I find getting lost in whatever files or whatever genre I'm thinking about creating that day, or making work on the floor and putting things together and slicing things up, whatever it is. I mean, that to me is the absolute joy of what I'm able to do right now. I mean, that and to have it resonate, oh my God, it's
Yeah.
like cooler than anything.
Yeah. So what brought you to LA?
Oh my God, life.
Life.
I was in Orange County because of my children and finishing them off. And I tried to find my footing there, but it was difficult. I'm a little bit more of a free spirit. I'm a city girl. And I tried to walk the streets in Orange County to find photography and make photographs. It was just a little bit more difficult. So I found myself coming to Los Angeles, going on Hollywood Boulevard. It was my first thing I did was walk in the steps where Gary Winograd and Lee Friedlander and many greats had been before. And I was like, oh my God, this is cooler than shit. And I walked those streets and I took class at LACP and I met photographers and I started doing a street collective with Julia Dean and LACP and I met people and it was a slow process. And as I went back and forth to Orange County and was in traffic a lot, I was just like, oh my God, I can't do this. And I started to feel like if I moved here, I might find my people.
Mm.
And I've been looking for my people for a long time. So I took the leap and I actually lived in an apartment on Hollywood Boulevard, just off Hollywood Boulevard. Or
Wow.
I know, right? For
What an
6 weeks.
experience. That's really cool. Like
And
to have all of that go on in your life, and then you're also just like enthralling yourself in your creative work and completely just like going full head on, diving into the water. That's so awesome. Like, how has that been for your soul?
oh,
That's like a very like spiritual experience.
I it's the most amazing um experience that I could cry. That's how amazing it is. I know. It's I've been working at this a really long time.
Mhm.
Not not for anything more than it's what's been working to get out of me, if that makes any sense. I not really good at I can talk to anybody, but it's easier for me to do a visual than it is for me to write. It's easier for me to do a visual than it is for me to talk. There's something magical about being able to actually make work and have people go, I relate to that.
Mhm.
It's this whole experience is, yeah, I'm grateful beyond comprehension. Okay, so this, oh my God. So this I took when I lived on Hollywood Boulevard. Um, and I was there for 6 months looking for a place to live in Los Angeles and trying to find my place. And whoa, I mean, it was, that was a really amazing gift to live literally a half a block from the Walk of Stars
Mhm.
and to walk out of this little house that I had a room in, a little apartment in, and see a cast of characters sometimes walk down the street. Like I remember one day, I think I saw Dorothy from The Wizard of Oz, all in costume.
Yeah.
And, then you always see Mickey Mouse somewhere. And, just to have them walk by, Superman, and see these characters walk by me, on their way to work was so interesting. And then to be able to walk up and down Hollywood Boulevard at my leisure, different times a day, and catch these iconic moments. That was really cool because I've gone back in the pandemic, I've gone back since I've lived here, but actually to be so the easy access,
Mhm.
that was amazing. So this is when I was living in Orange County and coming back and forth.
Mhm.
And so, yeah, I mean, the gestures here, um, this photograph, I remember making it, and this is an example of my process. I wasn't sure if it was perfect, wasn't sure, well, there is no such thing as perfect, but I wasn't sure if I caught it. I wasn't sure if it was good enough. And it lived, in my catalog for a long time. And then one day I printed it and then I stare at it and you put it up on the wall and you live with it. And then finally, I was given an opportunity to show work at LACP when they opened in
Mhm.
2019. And I had an opportunity to blow up 2 photographs that I could
Yeah.
be. And so I had a friend come over and I had 6 photographs out on the table to say, well, like, what works? And these past 2 photographs were the ones he said, these 2 work. And
Yeah, that's nice.
I was like, but I needed, sometimes you need another person. You're too close to the work. And when I saw these photographs on the wall together, I'm like, yes, but I couldn't do it, if that
Mhm.
makes sense.
Yeah. Sometimes you need a because we can be so judgmental of our own work. We are probably arguably the most judgmental of ourselves and the creative things we make. So yeah, definitely it's so awesome to have people in your life that you can trust that will give you that sort of outside perspective. It's great. It's a gift. So have you found your people in LA or
I,
out in
I,
California?
I have found well, actually, because of the pandemic, I think I found my people all over the world.
That's a beautiful statement.
I think that the positive side of this unusual time is that we have the opportunity to make work and it's seen. And then when it resonates, people can contact you and other photographers contact you. And then I've given support to other people in different places of the world, and they've given me support. And I think that has been amazing.
Mhm.
And I have found support in Los Angeles.
When did you start to compile photographs like you do in the extended frame series? When did that start happening?
In 2017, I was still in Orange County and my daughter was just in college and I was kind of alone a lot, but there was a lot going on. So I was just trying to figure out how I was going to figure out what kind of voice I had.
Mhm.
So I was looking at Facebook and I was just newly on social media and all that kind of stuff. And I saw this feed on one of my photography, I saw a feed on Facebook. And it was from Jim Friedman. And he was going through all the old great photographers. And he was kind of analyzing their work and the way that they use their contact sheets. And he was super smart. And I like the way that he was taking apart photography really resonated with me. And then he posted he was going to give a workshop, and anybody interested should, send work and see if we're a fit. So I got the nerve up and I put 20 photographs together. You have to remember, I'm in my hole in Orange County. I don't really know anybody. I have no network. I'm by myself.
Yeah.
And I put these photographs and I hit send and I go to bed and I'm scared, like he's going to just think everything's crap. And I wake up to an email from Jim saying, I think that we need a conversation. And when would you like to do that? And so I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. Set up a conversation. This is the photograph.
That you sent him.
I sent one of the photographs, and I sent him this photograph, and I made this photograph in 2014. And it sat in my catalog for 3 years.
Wow.
I knew that this photograph was a good photograph, but I didn't understand it. And Jim spent an hour and a half analyzing.
Wow. Yeah.
And I listened intently, and I was like overwhelmed with what he was talking about and what he saw in this. And he said, you will be able to make more of these. And I was like, well, I would like to learn how to do this again. And so I ended up working with him for 6 months. And he mentored me, and it was incredibly difficult. I said, don't be soft with me, be incredibly hard. There were lots of tears. I would shoot, and I would send him work, and it would be like, you can do better. It's not happening. You need to be more vulnerable. You need to expose yourself. You need to let it go. And these are all really difficult things.
Yeah.
Right? They're really difficult. And I was going through an emotional trauma at the time as well. And, like, I'm trying to be raw. I'm trying to let it go. And, a lot of stuff comes out on the surface. Like, you point the camera at yourself and you want to be pretty,
Totally.
And, right. And you're afraid to like not be pretty, and you're afraid to show that rawness, whatever that is. And I just started, because he was so, at a certain point, I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah.
Since college, I have always put diptychs and triptychs and different things together. I didn't remember I did that. But when I think back and I look at old work, it's always been something I've enjoyed doing. So there was a moment in time when we had analyzed all of my photographs. I had like 4,000 photographs. We got it down to 20 really good ones. And then I started to play. And as I started to play one night to give work to him, I found these photographs and I put them together and I sent them to Jim. And the next morning I woke up to an email, and he said, I wish I had done that. And I was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And I was like, what did I do?
Yeah.
And so it was like, okay. And so we had to analyze, like, what did I do?
Right.
And so this is 2017. And so I started to try to make other work in this vein. And it wasn't easy, like, because I don't do Photoshop. There's no manipulation of that sort.
This is just next to each other. Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, it's crazy how, when you look at this together, I mean, I guess that it's not all one photograph, but it could be. Like, it looks so well compiled together, and it kind of blends into each other. But I love the effect it gives that it is 3 separate scenes. So this was 2017, the first time you did it. Was it a light bulb moment?
It was a light bulb moment. Oh my God, it was so exciting, because the whole idea, so, it's really difficult as photographers now to even, show any work, because not show any work, that's the wrong way to say it. We're inundated with photography. It's everywhere. Okay. Everybody's a photographer. Everybody can make a good photograph. The iPhone is amazing. and cameras are amazing. So to actually make a photograph that somebody's going to stop and look
Mhm.
at for more than a nanosecond is a really, really hard thing to do. That doesn't look like anybody else's work, right?
Mhm. Right.
So I think that that light bulb moment was, oh, this is what I've been looking for. This is so, and I think that that's one of the reasons why the other work that I started to do has become clearer for me, because this I made in the pandemic. Um, I find that allowing myself the freedom not to worry whether it's successful or not,
Mhm.
to play a lot, to fail, to make a crappy photograph, but put it all out there. That's how I get here,
Yeah.
basically.
Letting yourself go, just being free. Yeah.
Totally.
That's when the best stuff comes out.
It is when the best photographs or art or whatever, because then we're being most honest.
Hmm.
And we're all the same. Like, we all, as human beings, if we let our guard down, it's all about allowing, we all want to be hugged. We all
Totally.
want to be cared for. We all want to be accepted. We all want to be heard. We're all little people that are looking for that same little, hi, how are you kind of thing. So I think that photography, that's what it does for me.
Going off of your statement you just made about, humanity and the personal identity along with the collective identity, that's a lot of what I talked about in the fragmented frame, and this idea of collective consciousness, but still having our individuality, and the importance of capturing that, and how much those types of ideas come out when, especially in like street photography or like documentative photography. So I wanted to know really what about being really a documenter and someone who carries these images and these ideas and these emotions of the people that you shoot, and then are presenting that to other people, and like you said, then other people can relate to it and they feel these emotions, and it's so present in your photographs. Like, what about documentative and street photography really draws you to it and has you continually doing it, and having that be a very, very like strong subject in your work?
Well, what's fascinating about a street is that it's never the same. I've gone back to the same spots in Hong Kong um, hundreds of times, and every single time they're different.
Mm-hmm.
Light's different, the people are different, the graffiti's different, and that's, like you say, that's what's so special. Like, there's a homeless woman I photographed in 2014 and in 2019 and 2010. And I just saw her again when I was just there,
Wow.
2020, 2021. And I was walking by and all of a sudden I recognized her and I made a photograph of her. So now I have her in 3 different times. And what an interesting experience. Unbeknownst to me, I have documented her several times on the street in several different locations. And it's a very cool experience to have that record.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and that is what draws me to the street. And I do that same thing with my children. I do that same thing with my house. I do the same thing with, I do. I photograph everything I do. Yeah, it's pretty crazy. And so hence why I don't have an answer for you going way back when to what do I do with the final product, because I'm so consumed with not gatekeeping my creative flow that I
Okay.
am documenting everything.
Uh-huh.
When the light shines in a certain way and it catches my eye, boom, pick that camera, pick that iPhone up. It's just, that's what I think I've learned when I listen to any photographer that has a body of work that resonates over time, is that this is what they do. They document, they make photographs. They don't hold themselves back. It's
Yeah.
not like, oh, I'll be ready later when I'm all, no. Right now, right now, the camera, I'm ready. And I think being ready is everything. And then not worrying about what you've captured. Doesn't matter. So documenting is actually incredibly important to my practice.
I want to go back and I want to talk about your experience in Hong Kong.
So it was a wonderful opportunity. Alexi and I, my daughter, went to Hong Kong over the holidays. We backtracked. We had to leave early enough so that we could get out of quarantine, so that we could be present for the holidays with my son. So because of the pandemic and because of Hong Kong's restrictions, we had to be tested twice here in LA before we could even get on a flight and be negative. So we had to do that. We had to have a quarantine hotel that was mandated, okay, by the Hong Kong government. We had that. And we had to have a plane ticket. Everything had to be set in stone. And it was quite frightening, actually, to tell you the truth, flying December 8th out of LAX. I mean, the pandemic was incredibly crazy here. We had not really gone out for 9 months. And we were masked and we were gloved and we were triple masked and we didn't touch any. It was incredibly stressful. So we get to Hong Kong, we land in Hong Kong International Airport, and the very first thing you do is you have to show them all your papers, your negative tests, your quarantine hotel, and then you're tested again before you can even go to your hotel. So you're tested. I actually have them here. You're tested immediately. We had these bracelets, these trackers put on our wrists. Okay, I know, it was super intense. So we get a tracker, and then we're put on in a table for, we didn't know how long. It could have been, anywhere from 6 to 15 hours in Hong Kong International Airport waiting for the results to come back. That was a long time. We had a 15-hour flight. Then we had actually 8.5 hours till the results came in. Then finally we're transported to our
8.5 hours, like just staying at the airport?
Yes, yes, very intense. Yeah, it was, we were aware of this. So we had snacks, we had blankets, we had, kind of stuff on the iPad to watch you're kind of so numb at that point after traveling so long. And now you're in another city, and yes, it was all altered universe. So, but I am making photographs on my iPhone, I have to say, the whole time. I did record what was going on. So that was super interesting. And then we get to our hotel with all of our bags, and they were masked and nobody helped us. So we're getting our tiny little elevator, getting all our stuff into the 2-room flat. And the weirdest thing was to shut the door and know that we were not going to be going out for 14 days. Yeah, it was.
14 days that is not light work. Like, to stay inside for 14 days is, and not only inside, but in a hotel room.
Yeah.
That's intense. That's a lot.
It was a lot. And we were exhausted and jet lagged and all that. So the photograph on the left-hand side of this extended frame, I took the first night. I didn't sleep much, and my daughter was sleeping, and I woke up at like 3 o'clock in the morning, and it's all an altered universe. And we have a lot of reasons for going back to Hong Kong, emotional as well.
Okay.
And so there was a lot of nuances to the trip. And I was feeling my daughter's emotional response to coming back. Her dad lives there, his new family there, my son living there for new job, all these things. And we couldn't see anybody for 2 weeks. So you're trapped. And so it was a lot of intense mothering feelings coming out.
I was going to say, how was that experience going through it with your daughter? And I'm sure, as you just mentioned, it was already an emotional time, and you got to add the pandemic on it, and then you got to add this, maybe family turmoil. And like, how was that? I'm sure that was also emotionally, but again, such a good experience for your daughter and you, nonetheless. I hope. Yeah.
Oh no, we had a game plan. Okay, we knew we were going to be there for 2 weeks, and Alexi's working with me, so she's like, Ellen, Mom, we're going to put together your, game plan for 2021. We are going to do your expense reports for 2020.
Yes.
Like, boom, 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 boom. I'm like, okay, I can do that. So we had a game plan to keep ourselves sane. That was good. And we were exercising, we did yoga, we did things, but that only takes a certain amount of time.
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't plan on what I was going to shoot, but I brought my tripod, I brought my stuff, and I didn't know how my time in quarantine was going to manifest itself. So this photograph on the right was Alexi unpacking that first night. So this is the keyhole on the left that became synonymous with, like, if somebody brought groceries, you'd wait to see if they got into the elevator before we opened the door, make sure we didn't infect anybody, if that, we were safe, but you had to think outside, you had to think. So, and this photograph in the center, I would see all the time, it was the reflection of the windows on the inside of the buildings that we were surrounded by, against the artwork in the building that was in the flat, which was a fake Mark Rothko. I love that. And then the photograph on the far right, I got up really early one day and the window was ajar and I saw the lights on the other buildings, and all of a sudden I took out my iPhone. I'm like, that's magical. And I made that photograph in a nanosecond. Then I pulled my Canon because I really wanted to make it again. I wanted to put it on, in a larger file. And the light was gone.
Wow.
So that, again, to that instantaneous, I was just like, again, why it's so important to act and not think, because literally in a matter of a couple of seconds, this photograph
would have been lost forever. That's a great point of saying, gotta just act. Don't let your ego get in the way. Don't think about anything, just do it. How many amazing moments, photographs can be lost from just doubting? The thousands, infinite.
Or not having the right lens, you're not having the right camera. Oh, I should have brought this or whatever. It doesn't really matter. Like I used to get really stressed over, oh, I'm using my iPhone, or oh, I'm using. Honestly, it is all about resonating. It is all about capturing that moment. The coolest photographs, that some of them that I've seen, have nothing to do with the technical aspect of them. It's about that they caught this moment that was rugged and vulnerable, and maybe it's not exposed perfectly, but what was caught transcends all that.
Totally.
So that I think is, and so this is actually putting together iPhone photographs and my Canon. I was like, oh, let's kind of see what happens. So I had no idea that these were going to work at all.
Yeah.
So
they definitely work. Is the one on the left taken with a iPhone?
Yes, and I also did it with my camera, but was super interesting. With my Canon, I couldn't really get the nuance that I wanted to. Mm-hmm. And so I ended up liking the nuance that I was able to get with my iPhone. And I have a ritual with my iPhone. I prefer to shoot it in the square format than in any other mode. And so it's just kind of like my homage to a 2 1/4,
No, what is a 2 1/4?
Oh, a 2 1/4, the 2 1/4 format that you could have used. There's the 4x5, 2 1/4. It's a format.
Okay.
It's eluding me, but I used them when I was in college, and it's a square format camera. It's an amazing portrait, way to take a portrait, because you're filling a frame in a very specific way.
Yeah.
Just a rectangle, but it's a discipline, basically, what I'm saying. So I guess I use my iPhone, I have a discipline to do it in the square mode, whereas I use my Canon and it's rectangular. I chose, I think about the masters of photography, and the way that they thought that you want to use your frame. And I think about Cartier-Bresson. I think about all the old, all those guys, Joel Meyerowitz and, Stephen Shore and Paul Weston, all the Friedlander, they use the frame, they use every part of it. And so I use my Canon that way, and I use my iPhone in the 2.25. And going back to, it's just a discipline, I guess is what I'm saying.
Okay. Yeah.
And so you can see that the center photograph was taken with my Canon because it's not a 2.25. So that would be the how you could tell which format I'm using. I don't like to muck up my process with I don't like a lot of cameras and stuff, because every time you have a camera with a different setting or a different way of looking at the world, it complicates things. So for me, just streamlining, so knowing that this is how I shoot my iPhone and this is how I use my Canon, it's just like, boom, I can access my flow that much faster.
Tell me about this piece.
Yeah, so I actually, all we could do was look out the window. And for 14 days, looking at the world from inside out, and hearing chatter below, and coming from Los Angeles, where there has been no chatter on the street, to hearing people and thinking, what possibly are they doing out there, and why are they also inside, and is it safe out there? And so, and not seeing very many airplanes going past, because there's very few airplanes now going to Hong Kong. So it was just a moment in time where I was, kind of fixated on the outside world, and I got lost, for a moment, making photographs of the buildings. I did a lot of that, shooting down the alleyway, or shooting across, watching people hang their laundry. And so this photograph on the right is out one window, and the far left is out into the courtyard with the other buildings, with a little nuance of me in there. And then the photograph of, like, the only way to shelter itself from the outside was, the blind up and down, up and down on a daily basis. And the whole idea of the abstraction of our life, I think that's what this photograph, the internal abstracted, the external abstracted, not knowing what's inside and outside. It's just very, emotional for me, even to looking at it now, because it's actually just a very muted palette. And we had nothing coming at us for for 14 days. So we were kind of trying to find things to entertain ourselves.
Yeah, it's I love the one on the left. The light is so beautiful. Yeah. Ooh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Nice.
Yeah. So this was towards the end of our quarantine, and it was close to Christmas. So and I actually had my birthday in quarantine. And so it was like my birthday, quarantine, and I was starting to talk to people, and talking to friends who are in Hong Kong, and the city lights were kind of getting a little bit more holiday-ish. And so again, we're on the inside looking out, and yet I felt this heaviness, this emotional unknown of what it was going to be like when we left, and going out into a city which was so different than Los Angeles. Los Angeles is incredibly spread out. It's, going from one side to the other with traffic, it takes you eons. Hong Kong is an island. It's incredibly dense. It's phonetic. It's colorful. It's, high rises. So the dichotomy of where we had left and where we were about to go, when we walked through the doors, this is us kind of going, oh, it's almost time to let loose, right?
Yeah.
So this was like very exciting, that like we're about to set foot outside and be in the, the excitement of everyday life on the street, living, because that's what Hong Kong is all about. People are on the street. Los Angeles is not a street city.
Tell me a bit more about these slides. Is this kind of maybe your big things that you focus on when you go out and photograph?
So there's a different, as we spoke about, I'm very intuitive, and I shoot whatever. Like you can find me shooting at the sky. If I see buildings and trees and something catches my light, I could be doing that for 20 minutes. And then on the so sad but true. But on the other side of the coin, I can turn the corner, and I remember turning the corner here, and on the left-hand side of this frame is a mirror. So how many times do you see a building with a mirror on the left-hand side? And that makes it very ambiguous for the viewer. So all of a sudden, I'm incredibly intrigued. And then the light, as it's coming into the frame, you can see it kind of, nicely making, this play going on with the people as they walk in and out, and then there's activity. So I've seen the mirror, I've seen the activity, I've seen the light, and now what I'm doing is I'm trying to frame it. So and now I see, like, this is a possible photograph that I could be using in an extended frame. So now I start the clicking, I start playing. So it's a constant working the scene once I see it, and I may get it on the very first take. Lots of times I can do that. But how do I know if I haven't really explored every avenue? And so this is what I do. So I'm framing, looking at the light, the ambiguity of the scene, playing, I just love that left-hand side, because the viewer is going to be really perplexed by that.
Totally. I thought maybe like you had said, you're like, oh, I don't do Photoshop, I don't really alter things. I thought maybe on the right photograph there was something going on with where the mirror is, but now that you've said it's a mirror, yeah, it's a totally interesting element to the photograph, definitely. Yeah.
So gesture. Okay, so this is really close to where I was staying at my son's, and I'd walk by this all the time. And then this one day, light is a really big factor when you're looking on the street. And depending on whether it's overcast, whether it's direct sunlight, or whether it's hazy, or just the, whatever's going on in the atmosphere changes everything about a scene. I'd walk by these lanterns and this scene 100 times, but on this particular day, like, the lanterns caught me, the yellow going on in the background caught my eye. The guy wasn't even there. I was already framing this photograph. I was like, I just like an abstraction right now. And so I'm not thinking, I'm making that framing, and the guy comes out of nowhere
in the perfect blue window.
Perfect.
Yeah.
It was like with the turban, I'm like clicking. I'm like, this is fabulous. And so what's really important is that I used to stop myself and get 3 or 4 frames and then stop. I work really hard. Don't stop, Ellen. I'm talking. Just keep clicking until he's gone. Just keep clicking, because you don't know where exactly the right tension's going to fall. And tension, that elusive moment where the edge of the frame, the gesture, the light, everything kind of, the synergy kind of comes. Energy kind of comes. You don't know when you're in the moment. So that's why I wanted to share this. Like, I don't know. And then again, you don't know where this is going to match up with. If I put it with an extended frame, if I match it, what one would be the right moment to include?
Yeah.
So this is part of my process now.
Just free flowing, just going with it. Yeah. Not holding back.
Yeah.
Narrative.
Oh my God. So there before me is this guy painting a mural. I mean, how cool.
Amazing.
Then, right? Amazing. So I see the mural happening. And then immediately my eye is drawn to the barber shop with the guy I think it's a little boy, getting his hair cut.
Wow.
Yeah. So to me, this shows you how my eyes are working on the street. Like, immediately I see the guy on the right painting the mural. The second thing I see is the guy inside getting his hair cut. And now my job is, how do I make a photograph? Because this is a really narrow street. It's a hill like this. And I have to work at not getting run over. And so I'm in the street and I'm trying to frame it. And you know, what happens when I'm at one with my camera is I don't hear anything, right? I don't hear anything. I don't see anything. And I'm alone making this photograph. So nobody's there saying, huh, trying to get run over, move. So I'm constantly looking and
Yeah.
trying to catch the moment. And I remember this being really difficult because I was trying not to get killed. Basically. And I was trying to frame it and catch it and not get killed. So I'm not sure I did it, but this is the narrative I love. I love like the last frame where you see the guy turning.
Totally.
So he's turning, the guy's, you know, minding his own business, never noticed me ever. And then the guy getting his hair cut. So like, this is the storytelling that you hope to have, right? When you're on the street.
Yeah. And it's, I mean, it's like a almost like a Where's Waldo situation. Like the more you look and zoom in, the more you'll find. And yeah, that's like one of my favorite pieces from you. I'm blanking on the exact name of it, but there's a couple and she's in a wedding dress.
Yeah,
That one's incredible. I
it's
love
a
that.
kind of day. Yeah.
Oh, it's a Mal kind of day. Yes, yes, yes. Yeah, that one's incredible.
Oh my God, it was so cool. Actually, I can show it like right here. That's the one you're talking about.
Yes.
Right. That was so cool because that again shows you how, you know, the street is so special. There I am walking, minding my own business, looking for things to photograph. And there is this amazing couple in the middle of Hong Kong, you know, their marriage photos, and the photographer is doing his job. And I couldn't, you know, I didn't really care. I was making photographs of that. It was precious, and they were so in love, and they were so trying to make it memorable. And yes, that was magic. Okay, this is very special. I was walking on Cat Street, which is a very known street in Hong Kong for art dealers and art antiques and stuff. It's a little teeny weeny street, and it's got alleyways off of it. And I just glanced to my left, and I saw this guy deep. It's the first photograph on the left. Is the first one I photographed. And I walked past, and I was then I had to reset my camera. I wanted to make sure I had all my settings right. I wanted to make sure that I had my focus so that I was really, when I put my camera back up so I wouldn't disturb him. And so I then made many photographs, and then the guy came walking down the street, also very nice. I thanked him. not out loud, but in my head I was thanking him, because you know, you can feel this man's I want to say despair. I don't know what he was thinking, but you can feel his angst for the day. You're with him. And that's a moment that for me as the viewer we relate to.
Totally.
And we don't care what he is actually thinking. We all put ourselves in that spot, and all of a sudden we're like drawn in and go, yeah, I have those moments. You know, it's the human condition, right?
Yeah. And the human condition is just so present in locations like this, in situations like this.
I loved this moment. I was on my way to lunch. I'm meeting somebody, and so I gave myself extra time because it's this really busy street, industrial street called Connaught Road, DeVoe Road, and all of a sudden I saw this really shabby, earthy, you know, background of the fence or whatever that material is. It's a metal fence behind, shielding a work site. And I see the bike and I see the fence. And so I was very fortunate because there's a huge truck parked on the side of the road. So I'm crouched down between the actual truck and this wire structure fencing. And so I'm poised there probably for a good 30-40 minutes, and I'm changing my focus, and I'm watching the people go by, and it's an exercise. I'm envisioning Cartier-Bresson, right? Like this is a photographer's dream. You know, how many levels can I play with, right? I got my background already set. I've got my foreground already set. Now I just have to have the right people walk through. I've got to click it. I got to be present. I got to have, you know, everything's there. So this is so cool to me, just to play. And I think that's what's really important is, I love this photograph on the right with the guy urgent.
I really like the one on the right too. Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And it didn't actually work. The next, you'll see what one I used, but the whole idea of him fast, you feel his urgency.
Totally.
And then the middle frame, it's almost everyday like. And then the guy on the left carrying the box, totally different feeling. So it just shows you how the same scene almost practically changes so quickly. That's what gets me. From that, I made this.
Yes. I love the one in the middle.
Love the one in the middle.
Mm-hmm.
That was it. That was a 2-second one because I didn't want to disturb him. I saw him out of the corner of my eye. I even think I kind of did it from my hip because I just didn't want to disturb him. And I know I probably did another one from my eye, but I just wanted to hopefully get it undisturbed. And then the one on the left, I really worked at that scene as well for a little while, watching people walk through, it's the right person, it's the right light, it's the right scene, it's the right gesture. Everything every little nuance makes a photograph. So before I moved to Los Angeles, I sold my house in Orange County. I was homeless per se. And I met Anna Gooley in Orange County, and wonderful young woman. And she had this internship with Waking the Village. Her job was to kind of bring them forward in all their, media and such. And she was looking at everything they had, and it was really antiquated and really wasn't telling the story. And their mission is to take young people, 18 to 24 years old, who would otherwise be homeless, and help them not be on the streets. And they have young mothers in another home, and they help young people who would otherwise be on the street get their footing, get their education going, give them support, teach them how to, wherever they've come from, to give them another community so that they can launch themselves and find themselves in a much better place. And they always have, they're given education, they're given a place to live, they have jobs, they help them find jobs. It's a new start. So I met these young people, and I went to Sacramento, and I lived with these young women, and I photographed. Anna was great. She had a shot schedule. As I got off the plane, and I made photographs from people who had been in the program, who were success stories, to people who had just started. And so this photograph that we're looking right here is I photographed every single person who was in the program. I made portraits for them. So I gave them portraits, and it culminated with a show in a coffee shop that gave them an impetus to have people come learn more about Waking the Village. It opened up right before the month of giving in April, and they raised something like, $22,000.
Wow.
It helped bring awareness.
Wow.
That's super exciting.
Yeah.
So flash forward, one of the people I met in this process and lived with was Grace Loscher. And Grace, what she did for Waking the Village is she brought art to the community, and she helped people, deal with their past and traumas by bringing art to the street and to young people. So she had decked out this van, and she took it to homeless people, and she sets it up, and she makes it available.
Cool.
So I was really interested as I started to, have a partnership with you, the Camp Modern, and with other organizations, and getting my work out there. It's been really important to me to give back and want to help people. And I was looking for a cause, and it was a light bulb moment. And Alexi and I in Hong Kong I said, oh my God, I should talk to Grace. Because Grace, unbeknownst to me, just became a nonprofit. And so she's her own little entity. And so I we talked and she was like, oh my God, Ellen, I would love to partner with you. And I said, Grace, I would love to give whatever I can to help, sustain young people who have been given a little bit more difficult,
Yeah.
journey in life, to, give a little bit of my proceeds. And if I sell more work, I will give more to them.
Yeah.
I mean, that is my goal. If I can do more for people with my artwork than just make, images that people like to live with, but I can give back and help people grow and find their best selves. Oh, that's just magic.
Yeah, that's the true purpose. I mean, what's the point of doing it if you're not doing that in some
Right.
way, shape, or the other? So I
Right.
think it's incredible. That's why I really wanted to highlight that today and make sure we talked about that, because there's not that many people out there who do it, and it's really refreshing and inspiring to see you out there doing the work and giving back and giving a little bit of your success back to people in need, and harboring this idea of art being a really healing practice, because like you said, it's like people, some people get dealt a really, really difficult hand in life, and
Oh,
it is completely uncontrollable by them, and trauma is really, really hard to get through, and some people have some really heavy duty trauma. So I'm sure art is just so successful in mediating that in some way. So it's really, really beautiful. The cause is so, so beautiful. I read about it and went to their website and read about their mission and everything. So it's incredible that you were working with them.
oh my God, that was a gift. So that's how I ended up in Los Angeles. Right after that show opened, I ended up in Hollywood. So
Wow.
it was very exciting to have come from a place where I actually was helping people, bring light to young people who, not their fault, were given a little bit of a tough journey. And I have to say, for us, everything happens for us. We're given an opportunity to learn from what we're given. And if we do that, we become much better people. We become much more empathetic.
Yeah.
We become much more vulnerable. We're much more relatable. We're much more understanding. And so I think that's a gift.
Okay, that was so well said. I think
A
I
wrap.
think I'd like to end on that. That's a beautiful statement to end on. What do you think?
I think that's great.
Okay, great. So thank you everyone who came to watch. Make sure to check out Ellen Friedlander on all of the Camp Gallery's sites and on our Instagram. If you want to say your Instagram, it's at, what is it?
EMF Photo 59.
There you go. So thank you everyone. And thank you so much for being with me today, Ellen.
I love it. Thank you, Bella. Thank you,
You're
Melanie.
welcome.
Thank you, the Camp Modern.